down. Demand is never down. It's production that's down. It's supply that's down. That's what needs to be stimulated. I drove here in a car. I didn't fly here in my own helicopter. Well, I want one. I'd like to keep it parked on my yacht. The government doesn't have to stimulate all that desire in me. What limits it is production, how productive I am. That's what limits what I can buy. But I want all kinds of stuff. The same thing in China. They want everything we want. And so they don't have to worry about demand. It's there. Right? They don't need our demand. There's 1 billion people in China. We need their supply. We need our production. You see, if the Chinese stop sending us their goods, they get the goods. What happens in America without all the imports? What would be on the shelves at Walmart if we couldn't get stuff from paper? The shelves would be empty. All we have is paper. And that's what's coming. So we're going to get this big crash in the dollar because of all the money we printed. All the government has done, we haven't eliminated these losses. We've just changed their form. The government made it so that if you had money in the bank, you didn't lose your bank account. Your bank made a bunch of stupid loans, but your money's still there, right? Well, the government isn't magic. Right? They can't create wealth out of thin air, but they can transform through a monetary sleight of hand how those losses are going to hit you. So instead of losing your money is going to lose its value. And that's what's going to happen. But the problem with that is people that didn't do stupid things lose as much money as the people who did, maybe more. So we're going to have a crash in the dollar. And the dollar is going to collapse. And when that happens, prices are going to go through the roof for consumer goods, most particularly for commodities like food and energy. Initially, the government will say it doesn't matter because it's not part of the core CPI. But eventually, the rest of the stuff will go up too. Eventually, interest rates are going to go up dramatically. They have to. And we're going to be deeper into debt. I mean, people think we've solved our problems. We've got more debt now than we did when the problems first surfaced. So how can we solve them? We found ourselves in a hole, and our solution was, let's dig in deeper. So imagine how much worse the crisis is going to be when we have higher interest rates on more debt. And the government doesn't learn anything, as I've said before. One of the big problems with the mortgage market was ARMs, teaser rates. Because of the 1% Fed funds rate, a lot of people were able to get mortgages that were, for the first few years, they had a very low payment. And that enabled people to buy houses they couldn't afford, because for a few years they could afford the payment. They couldn't afford the payments later on, but no one cared because by then they were all going to be rich. So it didn't matter if your mortgage payment doubled because you were going to be rich because you bought a house. Well, the government is making the same mistake. The huge deficits that we have right now, they're being financed with short-term bills. The national debt is like one big adjustable rate mortgage. The Chinese and the Japanese have given us a teaser rate. Well, what happens when it resets and interest rates double, triple, quadruple? We can't make the payments. It's just impossible. So the only way to finance it is by printing money. And then we're going to have this real crisis. Because then the government is going to be forced to do something very, very uncomfortable. See, the last time we had to make a choice like this was when Ronald Reagan came in 1980 and we had Paul Volcker. And Paul Volcker was maybe the last central banker to actually do the right thing. And when he did the right thing, he was very unpopular. People wanted him to be impeached. Volcker is very popular now, but he was vilified in 1980. Everybody hated him because he was taking away the punch bowl. You think he was popular for having 20% interest rates? You think, he thought, what interest rate is going to make me popular? 20%. No. It was the tough medicine that the economy needed. Right? Now, we're going to be in that situation. Sometime, maybe in 2010, maybe 2011, the dollar is going to be in serious decline. We will breach through the 70 handle on the dollar index. We'll be going through 60. The dollar will be under serious pressure. Oil prices will be back well above 100, maybe headed towards 200. Food prices, everything's going to be going up. Long-term interest rates are going to start to move up. Unemployment, of course, is going to keep getting worse. It's not going to get better. So unemployment might be 13% or 14% officially. Unofficially, it'll be over 20%. And the government's going to be forced to raise interest rates. Raise interest rates into that worsening recession. Now, if they do it, then you're going to have all of the entities that they bailed out fail again. And they're going to have to let them fail. They're not going to be able to rescue them again. Because if they do, the dollar will fall even more. And so, if they do the right thing, we're just going to have an even worse recession than we would have had if they had done the right thing sooner. But they're going to have to develop the political will to do what they haven't done yet. Right? And that's raise interest rates into a weakening economy and force the government to stop spending. Refuse to monetize government debt. Force the government to reduce its workforce and cut back on its expenditures. That's going to happen to save the dollar. That's what needs to happen. It'll be a very painful process. I wish we had done it sooner, but wishing isn't going to make it so. We'll have to do the right thing. The alternative is they refuse to do the right thing. The Fed tries to accommodate all of that by printing even more money, and then we're going to get the equivalent of a monetary overdose of stimulus. And the monetary overdose is hyperinflation. And in hyperinflation, you destroy the value of the currency completely. And that would be the absolute worst thing that can happen. Because that will bring on a period in this country that, it's even hard to imagine how bad things would get during that type of environment. I mean, that's what laid the foundation for the rise of the Nazi Party, Adolf Hitler, in Germany, following their hyperinflation. I mean, they had that in Argentina 100 years ago, and the country never, look where they are today. They were one of the richest countries in the world 100 years ago. Now they're, hyperinflation destroyed. Look what's going on in Zimbabwe right now. And, none of these countries wanted hyperinflation. It wasn't their intention, but it was politicians trying to avoid telling the truth. Nobody wanted to, deliver the bad news, admit to the voters, that they had lied, that they had overpromised, and that there's nothing government can do. So this is what's going on, and this is a choice that we're going to have to make. I'm still hopeful that we'll make the right choice. And I'm trying to run for the Senate to try to be there to influence that choice. To hope that by then, because I think that this crisis will certainly come if I win this Senate term, it will happen during my tenure of that 6 years. And somebody needs to be in the Senate that understands the problem. And that understands that the solutions are not in the government. The solutions are in the market. The government created the problems. They're serious, but they're not insurmountable as long as the government gets out of the way. There are certainly things the government can do to make it a lot easier for the market, meaning, and when I say the market, I mean every individual American working hard, entrepreneurs, individuals, just working, trying to make as much money as they can in a market economy, will get out of this. But the things that the government needs to do, a real government stimulus, would be to, reduce regulation, reduce tax, reduce spending, and to let the market function. And of course, right now, and one of the real fallouts or the problems of this last episode is that the free market is once again getting the blame for a problem that was created by government. And all the time when I'm speaking now and I say we need deregulation, we need free markets, inevitably it's like, well, isn't that how we got into this mess? Didn't just Wall Street run amok? Isn't this all greed? Isn't this all capitalism? No. As I said, it's all government. Government set the stage. Government dealt the cards. Wall Street played it, but that's the hand that they got dealt.